Welcome back, YouTube. So, a really big question I've been getting is, am I buying now? Is it too late? Should I wait before purchasing? And are we pretty much set to consolidate at our higher high? Not saying this is the bull run, but are we just set to consolidate at our higher high? So let's take a look here at the charts and see where those points are and kind of the trends that we're setting. So if we look here, we'll see there's a similar pattern, even between Doge and Bitcoin here, where we have retested some of the well-established trends, and on the last run up here, and now we're taking it pretty much a consolidation. And this is perfectly normal. I used the analogy the other day in a video saying that if you go like on a sprint and you run, you have this big run up, you'll see this in Bitcoin too. Typically you'll reach a point where you just need to kind of recuperate, take a rest, and that's perfectly healthy on any cycle. You don't want any of these gap ups and stuff like that, because that puts you in a position where you'll see something like this on the opposite side, and typically it's rather sooner than later. So what you'll want is something like this, consolidation period, and then hopefully have your next leg up for all of my bull enthusiasts. So I'm going to jump back and forth between the charts here so that you guys can see the points that I'm making. But let's take a look here at Bitcoin. So you'll see a very similar pattern here. Bitcoin didn't come really close here, but it still established a trend, and we're recently breaking above it here to kind of invalidate this trend. But we're still within that third line of the consolidation point, where we're having some neutral candles and potentially building up support. So what we're going to have to look at here is, at what numbers are we going to say, okay, well, we have the potential here to establish support if we consolidate down? Because right now we can consolidate literally right here at around 20,700. And that wouldn't be abnormal. We've bounced off of here before. We've rejected beneath it before. So it'll be perfectly normal if we consolidate here. But that does not necessarily mean that we're going to have a consolidate at a higher high here. So because technically we have a few pivot points here, we're relatively close. We got rejected off of the 21,473. And it's not really a strong resistance level, but it is the last one that validated the previous trend. So we have to count it. And then we have a influential point here, which is the 22,781. Now, where I would say we're looking at a reversal, which it would be the beginning of this trend, the last trend would be at around the 25,212 mark. That would be pretty much, that's kind of like filling the bowl on the other side and saying that, okay, well, this is a pivotal point here, and we're setting up to obviously have that higher high and potentially be the next leg up to have that consolidation for the bull run. So we have a few points here that we need to get past to kind of establish that. But ultimately, anything when you're looking at these blue lines here, these consolidation points in this trough, these, in my opinion, are great entries. It may not be the best, obviously, down here. The lower you are, the better. And we still have that, and just on the the macro levels, we still have that chance here for a further correction. Remember, typically crypto can go 85, 90%. That puts Bitcoin all the way down at around 10. We've seen crazier things with this cycle here. We've even seen it kind of fill this bowl here. Remember what I just said a few moments ago about gaps? We had this gap down from 21, and then boom, filled it right here. So now we're back here. So the question is, what happens next is going to be really important to determine the next cycle. So let's go back here to look at Doge. So, and you see the same thing here. What's pretty much what I was saying with the gaps. You're pretty much having that gap here, filling it up, and that consolidation point. So we're above the trough area, which is great. Now, the question is, because we got rejected off of the roughly the 946 mark. So the question is, will we consolidate above this beginning of the trough here and have that next leg up? Because really for us, we break above that 946, we're looking at roughly to retest this 11-cent mark. And that's going to be really a pivotal point here. The 11-cent mark is like our 25,000 for breaking past that would be like our 25,000 for Bitcoin. This here was the acquisition of Twitter by Elon. And then of course we had shorts and stuff like that pile in, and I'm not even going to get into that in this video, but this will be kind of us filling our bowl for for Doge here at around this 11-cent mark, because after this here, then we're more than likely headed to retest that 15 to 17-cent range, which we talked about in the last video, and the probability of that in April based off of the last few cycles. We'll see how that plays out. But overall, this is just kind of comparing it to the general tone of the market. So still, I don't like buying on these runs and stuff like that. This is why I was like saying that, in my opinion, these were great entries and stuff like that. Typically, this is the area that you want to look at. But ultimately, if you are long term, you believe these assets are going to appreciate, then obviously, coin count and stuff like that is going to matter. But you want to be careful here and around this, especially if you're talking about the higher levels like Bitcoin at like 25, Doge between like 11 and like 17. Those are gonna be the pivot points here. If you're saying, okay, well, before the final leg up, before we start doing these higher consolidations, then you can buy in that range. But ultimately, this is where you're looking to target your coin, especially if you have a high coin count. Like if you didn't capitalize off it down here, I'd be very mindful to make sure that you can that you're not raising your average, especially if it's not, especially if it's like 20 cents or something like that. This is still going to be below it. So, but ultimately, again, coin count, we're not going to really get into averages and stuff like that. You have to kind of keep that in mind. With Doge, with Bitcoin, let's take one last look at this here because I want to point this out. Bitcoin here. Yeah, so this is relatively weak. This is going to, I believe this week we're going to kind of find out what we're looking at. But a great pivotal point here is going to be the 22,781. That's really, but we filled the bowl technically. We've gotten rejected off of it. So this is fine. We could have that consolidation, that cool off period, even if we went back down to 20,000, even a little below. We had an overshoot and a cool off here in the short-term time frame. That is perfectly fine. But what we do here at this point is ultimately going to determine where this leg up is going to go. But again, we're going to have to confirm that here in the macros. We know that we have some very important Fed updates next month. So we'll have to confirm all of this in the macros. But when you're looking at it on the short-term time frame, this is why you're seeing a lot of the excitement as far as for entries and where we're going to consolidate, because typically before those run up, you'll start to see these assets kind of like build strength and have these support levels and stuff like that kind of strengthen, even though technically, yes, I know that we're due for the halving, and more than likely we'll start to see a lot of strength around Q3, Q4 of this year. I get it. But you will technically start to see some strength also build a few months before that around some of these pivotal levels, because not necessarily saying that this is the incline that's going to lead to the bull run, but it doesn't necessarily mean that Doge has to stay at 6 to 8 cent until the next bull run, or Bitcoin needs to stay below 20,000 until the next bull run. You can have this build up before you start seeing some aggressiveness. So this kind of has something to look for. That is my price update. Thank you for watching. Like, share, subscribe. You guys know the deal. And don't forget, check out Moo. Get up to 15 free stocks when you open a new account. And I will see you in the next video.